Hi everybody, and welcome to Your Healthier Way. I'm Lisa, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Caroline Alexander, a colon hydrotherapist. Hi Caroline, welcome.
Hi Lisa, thank you for having me today.
It's lovely to have you today. I'm very excited about this and about sharing some information with everyone about colonics.
Okay.
Let me give you a little bit of a background on Caroline. She is a nationally board certified International Association for Colon Hydrotherapy instructor for colon hydrotherapy. She served as an elected board member of the National Board for Colon Hydrotherapy and is an IACT ambassador who participates with a dedicated team of individuals to continue to raise the standards for the profession of colon hydrotherapy. Additionally, Ms. Alexander is a certified body ecology coach and promotes the benefits of Donna Gates, who's associated with the Body Ecology Diet, which is a probiotic diet to both her clients and her students. So Caroline, first of all, I'd like to know how you got into the field of colon hydrotherapy.
I think God has a sense of humor. I would really tell you it was divine order. I think sometimes there's a calling upon our lives, and mine is in the service of others. I have always been interested in health. My first mentor in life was actually Jack LaLanne, the godfather of fitness. I used to watch him as a little girl on television, black and white television, by the way, before color TV and the internet. So it was interesting to me that he used to say, if God didn't make it, don't eat it.
That makes
and
sense.
I remember my mother bringing home Hungry Man dinners, those TV dinners, and I said, Mom, I can't eat that. That's processed. So I would tell you from a very early age, I really started to look at health. My family wasn't always in the best of health, and I always had an interest in health. I actually worked at a hospital for 3 years as a nurse's aide, taking classes for nursing, and decided while working in the hospital that I didn't want to be sick. So that journey led me literally to the Air Force because I wanted to kind of see the world, and I ended up learning even more natural health methods while living in Germany. And then I came back to the United States, and really I would tell you colon hydrotherapy chose me in that it was something that was a natural extension of everything that I had been practicing for my whole life. So all of that comes into play with that, and I believe that we best serve where we're planted.
Absolutely, it sounds great. And there's, I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of other countries that seemed even more open to natural treatments, natural health than we are in the United States. So it's no surprise that you learned a lot while you were overseas.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, first of all, what is a colon hydrotherapist, and what is colon hydrotherapy, or also known as a colonic, right?
Colonic, colon lavage, colon irrigation. There are different terms for it. I like to say colonic hygiene. I feel like a digestive health architect, oral hygiene to colonic hygiene. A colon hydrotherapist is a person who chooses to electively certify themselves through the International Association for Colon Hydrotherapy, which is a membership organization with a voluntary certification course. And so I think the women, mostly women, and there are male colon hydrotherapists, but mostly the women that are serving in this profession have had usually some type of health challenge that brought them to this particular modality. And because of a positive health benefit, they chose to serve in this profession. So that's how I would define a colon hydrotherapist. Colon hydrotherapy itself is a procedure wherein a Class 2 medical device is used to very gently instill water into the colon, dilate the colon, and wash debris from the colon. So that's colon hydrotherapy.
Now, what's the difference between a colonic and an enema?
Sure. So a colonic is more of an extended form of an enema in that it will generally go the whole length of the colon, which is approximately 5 to 6 feet depending on the person. Human rectum is 4 to 8 inches, and the large intestine, or the colon, is around 2 inches in diameter. So a enema generally will get just that lower sigmoid region of the colon, that sigmoid rectal region. So you're really just getting the bowel that's sort of sitting right above where the rectum is. And the colon hydrotherapy allows the water to flow really through the large intestine. And so it's a much more complete form of an enema.
Now, I have seen, Kurt and I have seen a documentary called May I Be Frank, and many other food type of documentaries that show people getting colonics, and you see them laying down on a table, and you have the therapist that goes and inserts a tube themselves into the rectum, and they lay flat on a table, and they can see all this debris coming out. Is that what you use, or what kind of colonic is that?
Sure. Well, there are 2 systems for colon hydrotherapy. I use a Class 2 medical device that is registered with the FDA for endoscopic and radiological examination and/or where medically indicated. However, we use it mostly, colon hydrotherapist, we use it mostly for health and well-being purposes. We come into that realm of the holistic health practice. So there are 2 systems for colon hydrotherapy, what's referred to as a closed system and what's referred to as an open system. Both systems for colon hydrotherapy are purified water in and waste debris out. So I am a proponent of colon hydrotherapy, whichever system you choose to use. I personally was operations trained and on both systems. So I'm familiar with the closed system, and I'm very familiar with the open system because in my health practices, I always chose the open system. Barbara Chivis is a mentor in my life. She's a registered nurse and licensed acupuncturist and yoga instructor in New York. And I took my intermediate, advanced, and instructor training from her. And I'm very fortunate that I did because it gave me the opportunity as a colon hydrotherapist, particularly being an instructor, to learn both systems. So for the consumer, I would say that it's a butt preference. And I mean that in a nice way. You really have to feel, number one, comfortable with your colon hydrotherapist, whichever system they're using. I do recommend, for the consumer's benefit, that they choose an IACT colon hydrotherapist, and you can find IACT certified colon hydrotherapist on the IACT website, which is www.i-act.org. Every colon hydrotherapist that's listed on the IACT website is certified at least at the foundation level. Okay. They also maintain Class 2 medical device colon hydrotherapy systems that have the safety features that you as a consumer would want to have, including backflow prevention and water purification, and of course cleansing protocols that are going to maintain your sanitation, as well as disposable rectal nozzles for the open system and disposable speculums for the closed system. There are probably maybe even a few systems out there that are still Class 2 that use metal speculums for the closed system, but those are supposed to be autoclaved, much like dental instrumentation is autoclaved. So I really think that both systems are good. I personally chose the open system because the client can actually position themselves onto the nozzle. We use a disposable rectal nozzle that's a little bit bigger in circumference than the pencil that you're holding, and it penetrates the anal opening about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. I like to think of my rectal nozzles as an internal shower head. They're going to very gently instill water into the colon, which then dilates the colon and stimulates your own natural peristaltic movement. I feel that with the open system, the colon can absorb as much water as it needs, and then it can release at will, because you're effectively sitting on a toilet. It's just a different shape. Maybe I can refer to it as a bidet for the anus. And you're draped, so you're maintaining your personal privacy. Since I'm not inserting anything into the colon, the client actually quite comfortably, as I think you will agree,
Absolutely.
can position themselves, because the design of the device is such that you can't get on the nozzle too far, and the nozzle's only going to penetrate, again, lubricated, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So what occurs during the session is that temperature controlled filtered water, purified water, because on my system it goes through a UV light, a sediment filter, and a carbon filter before it comes to the client. So the nozzle's in, the anus will open, and the waste and water will go out and around the nozzle into the basin, and then to a 2-inch clear viewing tube. You're here for the show,
Yeah.
so to speak.
But and sometimes it's a show.
And sometimes it's a show. The colon's in charge, so it's going to release at will. And sometimes there's more waste product that we see coming out, and we always, since we're visual, I think that resonates more with people. They think, oh wow, I got a lot of brown stuff out today. For me personally and professionally, and obviously my opinion, because the one thing I will also say is that there are no scientific research studies that the medical community embraces this with, or backs up the value, no pun intended there, backs up the value of colon hydrotherapy. So I've been doing this for a little over 2 decades, and what I can tell you is that I've served in that time over 40,000 people as clients.
Impressive.
So it's also, I've replicated myself through teaching others to become colon hydrotherapists, which I think I'm probably most proud of, are people that have the desire to serve in this profession and then share that with other consumers. I can't wait for the day when there's a line out my door and not Georgetown Cupcake.
Yes.
I feel that what's most important about a colon hydrotherapy session is not what you see going out, but what you don't see going out. And I really base that on, and by the way, I'm from Missouri, which is the show me state, so I'll just throw it out there to anyone who wants to show me that I'm wrong. I have to say that I feel the most important thing about colon hydrotherapy is not what you see, but what you don't see.
Okay.
And that said, I base that on the fact that I believe that we're all exposed to toxins. I think that that's been documented in many different cases, and I think what made it more significant for me as a mother of 2 sons, Bill Moyers did a special in 2001 entitled Trade Secrets. Bill Moyers is an investigative reporter on PBS. He recently, I think, retired, but nonetheless, anyone can Google this. He starts this documentary out with a baby in the bathtub. And he says no child today is born without synthetic chemicals in its body.
I can believe
now,
that.
as a mother, that was very significant to me. And I really had to think about that and the work that I was doing at that time with colon hydrotherapy for my clients, because I can't make any claims about colon hydrotherapy. All I can legally say about colon hydrotherapy is that it very gently instills water into the colon, dilates the colon, stimulates your own natural peristaltic movement. So from my perspective, because it's a smooth muscle, that's kind of the exercise class for your colon, because you're dilating that colon and then contracting. And I feel that that helps improve bowel response. As you know, I have clients way before and after the colonic. And many times when clients are first starting colon hydrotherapy, they will weigh anywhere from 1/2 pound to 2 pounds more after the session, which seems counterintuitive. But colon hydrotherapy is also about hydration. And so if you've ever burned cookies on a cookie sheet or lasagna on the pan, you've had to soak that in the sink in order to soften that material and move it off of there. Mm-hmm. So when we have insipated waste in the colon, I believe that through colon hydrotherapy, we're hydrating, we're softening that waste material, and you may retain some water, but the next morning you're probably calling me back saying, "Oh my gosh, I've lost 5 pounds."
And I feel good. Now, you also mentioned that people have so much. How many pounds of waste does the human colon have?
Well, there are different stories out there. The validity of them, I can't really comment to. I can say that there are stories about John Wayne having X amount of waste in his gut, and Elvis Presley and so forth. There's really nothing that. Generally, they say there's anywhere from 5 to 25 undigested meals in the body at any one time. We have approximately 30 feet of plumbing in there, and much like food that you've put in the refrigerator and you had good intentions of getting back to it and you don't, and we've all had that science project in our refrigerator wherein you take the food out and you can see that the food's decomposed. When you take the Tupperware lid off, you don't see the odors, but you smell them. Yep. I believe that same combustion process occurs in our 98 degree bodies, and in fact it does. It's one of the reasons that flatulence doesn't smell so good, right?
Right. And there's so much that I think when I met you, and one of the things that Caroline does on the first session is, I think you sat with me probably for about 25 minutes.
Correct.
Just explaining all of this process. And one thing that I was really connected with was that you mentioned that about the accumulations, the toxic accumulations that we build in our bodies. And as you know, if you've watched our other videos, Kurt and I talk about the reason why we get sick is the accumulation of toxins in our bodies. And so many people think, oh, because I have a bowel movement a day or 2 a day even, my colon's fine. I don't have any toxic accumulations. Now, is that the case?
Well, from a legal standpoint, I can't tell you that you're washing toxins out. I can give my opinion to you, which is what I do during my initial sessions with clients, because I'm entitled to my opinions. And when you look at what the documentary that Bill Moyers did in 2001 called Trade Secrets, it talks about the 180,000 chemicals we're exposed to. He starts that documentary again with a baby in the bathtub saying that no child today is born without synthetic chemicals in its body. If you fast forward, Lisa, to last year, in 2013, there's medical evidence and scientific reports that babies, newborns, have anywhere from 200 to 250 chemicals in their in their bodies.
Sad and scary.
That's very scary, and so I believe that we really are accumulating toxins in the body. So when I tell you, or when I give my opinion, that I believe the most important aspect of colon hydrotherapy is what you don't see going out. Much like food that's in the refrigerator that's rotted, when you lift that Tupperware lid off, you don't see the odors, but they're there because you smell them. So when we see bubbles going out, I believe those bubbles basically are gases that are leaving the body. Can I prove that from a legal, scientific standpoint? Right. No. But here again, I'm from the show me state, so show me I'm wrong, please. I really feel I'm just a common sense kind of Midwestern girl.
Definitely.
Very simple. I like to keep things simple. Oxygenating the body, alkaline sources of water, whole food nutrition, and to that I would add probiotic foods and beverages, because they're friendly microflora is nature's internal alchemist. That's really what you need to build your system.
Is that what some people mean when they talk about fermented foods?
Yes,
and
that's
you
correct.
Go to like the organic grocery store, and you can go to the fermented food area, and it sounds very strange. And they'll tell us, make sure you don't eat fruit on top of, say, meat or other grains, and we talk about that in our videos.
Right. That's
because it will
combining.
Ferment.
Yes.
So what's the difference? Can you talk a little bit about fermented foods versus things fermenting in your colon?
I can. I just want to finish the one thought about my sort of 5 keys to health, which is oxygen, water, whole food nutrition, and probiotics. I would say that restorative rest and good elimination is important for health. I like to keep things simple. I encourage my clients to incorporate probiotic foods and beverages into their diet, because that's going to add the friendly microflora that we need, which is also referred to as fermented foods. That would be raw sauerkraut, kimchi. You can ferment beets. There are lots of things, carrots, turnips. I like to make a combination of things. I prefer to make my own cultured vegetables, and I use a kefir or a culture starter from Body Ecology because I think they're the best. And when I'm making those foods, I'm also putting my love and intention into those foods. And so therefore I'm actually ingesting that love and intention that I've put into our foods, because we really need to have a love relationship with our food. I don't recommend colonics if you're going to be having a lot of processed foods, if you're not going to make a choice to invest in your health bank. We all know about making investments in our savings account, and you can make withdrawals from your savings account at any time. However, every time that we are making an investment or withdraw, I like clients to think about bending their elbow to their mouth, because you are either making a health investment or a health withdrawal. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a glass of red wine or a big red steak if that's what you like. I just recommend that you try to find foods that are as close to real as possible, non-GMO, non-genetically modified organisms, meats that are antibiotic and hormone free, because what you put in your body, that fuel, is what's going to ignite your health. And I feel because we live in a very toxic world today, it is incumbent upon us to help our body cleanse, because our body's job is to cleanse. We have 1 trillion cells that make up our body, and every single solitary one of those cells produces waste product. So if you think about the fact that 50% of every bowel movement is metabolic waste and cellular debris, and not just undigested foodstuffs, it becomes even a more important aspect of our health to think about how we're moving our bowels, how our bowel movements are looking when we do have a bowel movement. You know, how complete is that? We talked a little bit about you know, some people feel tired. You feel tired after a colonic, whereas Kurt, your husband, feels very energized. Yes. We're all an individual experiment of one, and how we process through a colon hydrotherapy session is different for each individual.
Now, what can people expect when we go to see you on their first session?
Come to see me, or happens? Just well, for everyone, for everyone, I think I want to applaud everyone who comes in for a colonic, because you're coming into a new environment.
It took me over a year to get the gumption up to do this, because I was scared. And then I would tell Kurt, and it took him about another year after my first experience to do it, because I was scared. I'm like, is it going to hurt? Is it embarrassing? Is it the smell? I'm going to gag. But it was a wonderfully pleasant experience. So yes, if you could kind of walk through what you do.
Sure. So just like you were a stranger to me. Yeah. You walked into my environment, in a new environment to you. Right. To meet a stranger, to get half naked and put water in your colon.
No big deal.
No big deal, right? So I really do applaud the courage that it takes to walk through my door the first time, or any colon hydrotherapist door the first time. I try to make my clients feel very comfortable.
I tell you what, I'd rather that than going to the GYN for an exam. If I had to pick either one, I've got to say I would prefer this.
Right. Well, I think that the system I use also makes it very comfortable for clients. For me, I chose it because it was the most comfortable system for me. And so that means that I'm comfortable sharing that system. It doesn't mean that it's the best system in terms of delivery of water to the colon, but I do feel that it's obviously sanitary. The unit itself is a fiberglass top, and just, you know, you talked a little bit about, I think, you know, cross-contamination or you know, any kind of infections that someone might get. That's also a concern that I think the medical community has expressed about colon hydrotherapy. And I would tell you that with our system, I know for me, I'm very diligent on making sure that the device is very clean and sanitary, and that my environment's very clean and sanitary. We use Cavicide, which is a sterilization and disinfecting solution used in hospitals. Because it takes 26 seconds for our skin to absorb a toxin, I prefer to also make sure that my clients are not laying on Cavicide. But I have to, by law, because I serve the public, make sure that I follow those instructions.
Right.
Over that, I choose to use an environmental green cleaner, and then I use a 2.5 pH acidic water to also further rinse that down.
I really like that you did that, because a lot of people, and I've worked in the medical field for years, and you have the alcohol and the chemicals,
right.
And we don't think about that usually, that we're cleaning these things, but then we're putting chemicals in our body. We don't have the bacteria, but we have these deadly chemicals.
Sure.
So I really like that. Stood out to me that you handled it that way.
Right, and every time a client comes to our office, we open a new rectal nozzle in front of them every single solitary time, and we use a disposable rectal nozzle that is individually packaged so that it's sterile. And then we only open the end of it. We put our extension piece on that, and then put that onto the nylon nipple that's there for us to, make sure that the water gets to the right place. And it's very hygienic as well.
And a wonderfully peaceful environment too, because I was expecting a very clinical, medical-looking setting, right. And then. It was so relaxing. It's like you're like the kind of massage therapy kind of a setting, that kind of ambiance. So before we wrap up, this is all amazing information. Can you talk about, if people have a question about the cost for a colonic? Sure. And how often should they get one? And everyone will ask, does insurance cover it?
Great questions. So in my clinic, the initial session, which covers your first consult, it covers the first session, and of course a follow-up call from me the next morning to make sure that you're feeling well, that you also had a bowel movement the next day, because sometimes clients can have cleansing reactions. They can sometimes have a headache. I always like to say that your first colon hydrotherapy session is like opening up King Tut's tombs and letting the dogs out. I never know how a client might feel later. And yes, you are potentially going to have maybe a headache. Some people have a little bit of bloating and or nausea. That usually dissipates within 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours. And then people feel really good. Other people sometimes have cleansing reactions that evening, or they feel really tired because it does take cellular energy to cleanse, because you've just opened up the bowel, and it's my opinion that the rest of the body sort of goes, oh, hey, the liver is your chemical processing plant. So it says, oh, well, there's more room down there in that colon. Now I can push some of this out of my tissues and out of my organs. That's just me, in my opinion. But so everybody's going to experience it a little bit differently than the other. I will say that yes, you do wash out a little bit of good bacteria. Yes, you wash out some electrolytes. We give you electrolytes before you leave. We use cell food. I'm not a fan of Gatorade. I think it has a lot of high sugar and food additives that I don't think are conducive to our very best health. So I prefer something that's going to be a little bit more less sweet. And then probiotic foods and beverages is something that I encourage clients to incorporate into their health regime, as well as probiotic supplements. I'm not particularly a fan of, let's say, Dan and Activa yogurt, but I would prefer some type of probiotic, or whatever that might be, and how you make that individual choice is, of course, up to you as the client. But we're certainly going to recommend that. I would also tell you that the majority of your healthy bacteria should be in the small intestine, which is anywhere from 21 to 23 feet long. So that's what the good bacteria that's in the colon is. You're going to, even during a regular bowel movement, lose some good bacteria along with that. Okay. So most of us, unfortunately, do not have enough good bacteria, which is why I promote the Body Ecology Diet by Donna Gates, because that really incorporates that piece into it.
And that's like also important for people that have taken a lot of antibiotics, because
Correct.
the antibiotics kill off not just the
bad bacteria, but the good bacteria.
But the
right.
good. So if you take antibiotics, the probiotic should be something. Probably
Exactly. So I really don't feel that a colon hydrotherapy session upsets the natural environment of the colon in terms of that.
And does insurance cover it?
The majority of colon hydrotherapy sessions are out of pocket. There are specific insurance CPT codes and ICD-9 codes that you can check with your health practitioner. Okay. And I've had medical doctors who have written prescriptions for some of my clients.
Great.
Currently in the state of Virginia and in Maryland and in the DC area, since we're in the metro DC area, you do not need a prescription to do a colon hydrotherapy session. In the state of Texas, for instance, it's different. Consumers there do need a prescription from a medical doctor in order to do the colon hydrotherapy session.
Interesting. Well, this has been amazing. And we could go on and on about this, because Carolyn is such a wealth of information, and we are almost out of time here. But I just wanted to thank you, Caroline, for such wonderful information. And you know, even for me, it's like, even if insurance doesn't cover it, it's well worth it, because you know, and I guess how often people go, it depends on where they're at and how they're feeling.
You know, there really isn't a specific number that I can give to people. I will say, though, just before we leave the whole insurance, that there are many companies that offer flex spending, and you can use your flex spending account for colon hydrotherapy. Okay. As far as the sessions go, I generally recommend that you do one session. See if this is something that you think fits into your health regime, if this is something that resonates with you and that you feel personally you will get a benefit from. Again, there are no scientific or medical studies that support the benefit or the value of colon hydrotherapy. I hope that we change that in the future. Yes. And more importantly, I understand the medical community staying within their standard of care. So I don't disparage that. I would just like to see more of the science of healing married with the art of healing. Exactly. And I think the consumer is driving that. So it's up to you to take responsibility for your health. And I just appreciate consumers like yourself that are not only my clients, but that are also out there, educating, because that's really what I feel I do with every individual I come in contact with, is that I'm planting seeds for the future.
Yes, and thank you so much, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Your Health, Your Way. We hope you've benefited from this session, and join us on our next episode.
Thank you.
Take care.
And fade out.